A subscriber suggested I react to this video from Elizabeth from Liz in the Middle, where she shares her struggles with menopause and how she is very much not okay. Now, at first I hesitated because the video is a couple of months old and was uploaded before I'd even started on YouTube. So I thought, well, can I offer a fresh perspective and some value? And I think I can. So in this reaction, I'm first going to offer my insights into Elizabeth's struggles and then share two really interesting concepts that might help if you're in a similar situation, because it is okay to not be okay. And if you're new here, hi, I'm Ruth, retired doctor turned health coach. I'm 50 and I'm in the throes of the menopause too, and yes, it does suck. Elizabeth's video is called I'm 54 and I'm not okay. I'll link it in the description below, so go check out her channel. This video is raw and honest. In it, she sits in her car and she's visibly exhausted and emotional and openly shares her struggle. And it takes great courage to be that vulnerable online, and I just want to acknowledge that. She closes the video by saying, well, I've got to go now and do my shopping. So despite being at rock bottom, she goes and gets on with life because she has to. And that in itself is brave. She describes several menopausal symptoms, but a couple for me stood out. Firstly, body pain, so particularly muscle and joint pains. Now, these are common because estrogen has a protective effect, an anti-inflammatory effect. So when our estrogen levels plummet, so does that protection. And this one I can personally attest to, having recently got over a frozen shoulder, and it was incredibly painful and limiting. And if you've had similar, let me know in the comments below. And secondly, low libido. Elizabeth says she feels dead inside, and I think that probably resonates with a lot of women. So firstly, the change in desire, and secondly, physical symptoms such as vaginal dryness can make intimacy more difficult. And you know, that is not fair. Watching her, I wanted to reach through the screen, give her a hug and say, you're not alone. I understand how you feel. And she makes a great point. There's a lot of discussion out there in the world about the peri-menopause, but then what? So then we've got the post-menopause. And as I've said previously, women just seem to fade into the background. And in her video, the sheer number of women saying in the comments, look, I get it, just goes to show that we need more voices out there about the post-menopause too. It's a big reason why I started my channel, and again, I'm not alone. So there's a lot of midlife creators out there, and I'll put a link to a couple of my favourites in the description. Another creator, Jennifer from Midlife Anti-Crisis, made an insightful reaction video, and also I could listen to her southern accent all day. It's lovely. Now, Jennifer highlights something from the original video that really resonated with her, and that was loneliness. Both she and Elizabeth are single parents with older or grown-up kids. Now, I'm not in that particular boat. I'm married and I'm not a parent, but I get it. So the childless and child-free, and they're not the same. So if you want a video explaining the difference, just let me know. It can be quite an isolating experience, and you know, we feel lonely too. And I do think about the future. So what happens if my husband goes first, which is statistically likely because I'm younger and women tend to live longer, then what happens? And that can feel overwhelming. Which leads us on to a bigger issue, the emotional toll of the menopause, be it low mood, anxiety, feeling like a shadow of your former self, or just full-blown rage. You know, it's a lot to cope with on top of all the other stuff we've got going on in our busy lives, and that's hard. Now, in my content, I tend to focus on the positives of turning 50, the chance to reset your health and well-being, and the redefining of this period of life, but equally, I can't ignore the dark side. I want to share two concepts that really helped me during my struggles with a chronic pain condition that finished off my career in my late 40s. Firstly, we have Gilbert's theory of emotional regulation, and don't let the really stuffy title put you off. This basically says that we've got three systems in our brain that control our emotions, and they're all controlled by different hormones. The drive system runs on dopamine, and it's how we plan, make goals, and take action. The threat system is that classic fight or flight reaction with its associated jolt of adrenaline. Short-term stress is a normal part of life, but chronic stress can keep that system switched on all the time, and that's not good for us. And finally, we have the self-soothing system, which uses the calming hormone oxytocin and the body's own opiates, endorphins. Now, when stress kicks in, many of us default to the drive system, endlessly researching solutions online, for example. But if that doesn't work, then the anxiety worsens. Instead, we need to activate our self-soothing system, and this is literally whatever works for you. So a warm bath, a walk in nature, some calming music or breathing exercises, or alternatively going to get your nails done and binge watching White Lotus on Netflix. Even, giving yourself a self-hug releases oxytocin and makes you feel better. For a lot of us, this soothing system is underused. At best, we've just forgotten how to relax. At worst, it's seen as self-indulgent or weak, and we just don't allow ourselves any self-compassion. Which brings us nicely to idea and concept number 2, the art of self-compassion. Now, the Mindful Self-Compassion program was developed by a psychologist called Dr. Kirsten Neff, and it teaches people how to be compassionate to themselves and the same level of compassion that they would show to a friend. And on her website, which I'll link, there is something called a self-compassion break, and there's 3 simple steps. First, acknowledge the struggle. Say, this is a moment of suffering. In her video, Elzabeth calls it just the menopause, and she then goes on to explain why it's clearly not just the menopause. And this highlights how menopause is still viewed by some in society. So for this stage of self-compassion, we can say, yes, menopause is a state of suffering. We're going to acknowledge that fact, and we're just going to sit with it for a bit. Then recognise that feeling crap is essentially part of life. Suffering is part of the human experience, and you are not alone. The final stage is to give yourself permission to be kind to yourself, to cut yourself some slack and take the time you need to self-soothe. Now imagine a friend was in Elzabeth's shoes. What would you say to them? So you'd probably say something like, I'm really sorry that you're struggling like this. Please, is there anything I can do to help? What you wouldn't say was, oh, for goodness sake, pull yourself together, it's just the menopause. But I'm willing to bet that these are some of the harsh things that Elzabeth said to herself. And obviously, if you're watching this, please correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. So the key is to treat yourself as you would treat a friend. Get that nasty inner voice, say, I thank you for your contribution, now do one, and show yourself some self-kindness. Elzabeth has started HRT and is feeling much better, and that is fantastic news. Now, HRT is really good for a lot of women, myself included, but not all women can take it due to medical reasons or choose to, want to take it. And that's okay. There's a lot you can do to make a big difference and support your body in menopause with lifestyle choices. And that's essentially what my channel is about. So if you like my approach, then I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe and come join me on my YouTube journey. Now, in her most recent video, she's revealed that unfortunately she's had to pause the comments on her original video due to the number of comments basically by a load of haters. And that's the other reason I wanted to make this reaction, to say, Elzabeth, if you're out there, misogyny is alive and well. But just remember, for every comment from someone unpleasant, there were like 100 comments from supportive women who've essentially got your back like a pride of flipping lionesses. I'm so glad to see that she's got her mojo back. And if you find this video because you're feeling alone and struggling, then I hope what I've described will bring you some comfort. Menopause does suck. It is okay to not be okay, and it is not self-indulgent to take the time out you need. And here endeth my TED Talk. I'll link a video on the power of over 50s women here, and I'll see you on the next one.